listener production.
Hey, Bension Siebert here with The Briefing. Some of us have always thought astrology was total bullshit. Sure, the moon's gravity controls the ocean tides, but Uranus has something to do with my sex life? Or my finances, for that matter? No. Plenty of people obsessed with their astrological chart, checking their daily horoscope, using star signs to assess compatibility for romance or friendship, might still admit it's probably a little bit bullshit, but they like it and it's fun and it doesn't do any harm. But for those who use astrology to help them make significant decisions in their life, it really does matter whether this stuff is true. Enter Spencer Greenberg, the founder of clearerthinking.org, a social enterprise in the US. He and his colleagues were so interested in the topic that they designed and conducted a study that they hoped would finally settle the argument once and for all. Is astrology the real deal, or is it all fake news? Spencer, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing. What did your study find?
So we tested 152 astrologers to see if they could match people to their astrological charts. The way it worked is we provided lots and lots of information about 12 study subjects. For each of those people, astrologers got to see all of that information, and they were shown 5 astrological charts, and they had to say, which is that person's real natal chart?
And what were the results?
The first result was simply if you look at the average across 152 astrologers, did they do better than random chance at matching people to their charts? And the answer is no. They did pretty much exactly what you'd expect if they were matching people at random. We also were able to look at, well, maybe more experienced astrologers did better. So we checked the link between experience level and astrological performance, and we found there was no better performance among more experienced astrologers. Another thing you might wonder, well, maybe this is just an unfair test. Maybe, this is not something that astrologers claim they can do to match people to their charts. So to test that idea, well, first of all, we developed the study with the help of 6 astrologers to help make sure it was a fair test. But also for the 152 astrologers that took part, right after they finished, we asked them to predict how well they thought they had done to see if they really believed that they could do this task. And indeed, they did believe they could do the task. The least experienced astrologers thought they would get 5 out of 12 right, which is way above chance. And the most experienced astrologers thought they would get 10 out of 12 right, which is extremely good. But the reality is that astrologers essentially did no better than chance. They did about 2.49 right out of 12.
Did any of that surprise you?
I wasn't too surprised because I thought it more likely than not, astrologers probably couldn't do the task. That being said, our goal was really to develop a test where if astrology really works, we would find that it really works. And if it doesn't work, we find that it doesn't work. So we really wanted it to be a fair test. And honestly, the much more interesting finding would be if we found that astrology works. That would be amazing because it would really be difficult to explain with modern physics. That would be spectacular. But I'll tell you the thing that did most surprise me, which is that I thought astrologers would agree with each other quite a lot about what the right chart was, even if they didn't get the chart right. But much to my shock, even the most experienced astrologers only agreed with each other 28% of the time. And that's compared to 20% of the time if they'd been picking charts completely at random. So that was fascinating that there was really a lack of agreement about what chart corresponds to what person.
Some people listening to this who might be very wedded to astrology might be saying, well, this guy just hates astrology. Why did he do this study? Is it really a scientific test that we should be applying to this system anyway? What would be your response to that?
Well, the reason that we ended up studying astrology was because we were doing a bunch of tests on different personality systems for our website, clearerthinking.org, where we pitted the Myers-Briggs style framework of personality against the Big 5 style framework, and we released a personality test based on that called the Ultimate Personality Test. And in doing that, one of the things we included are people's astrological signs. And we had an interesting finding that even though about 25% of Americans believe in astrological signs being relevant for personality, we found they didn't predict people's lives at all. So we tried testing 37 different facts about a person's life. We couldn't predict any of them with astrological signs. When we released this result to the public, a number of astrologers got very mad at us because they said, this is really not a fair test of astrology because astrological signs, that's like baby or tabloid astrology. Real astrologers use your entire astrological chart. And we thought, yeah, you know what? They're absolutely right. That wasn't a fair test of astrology. And that kind of motivated us to try to do a fair test. And that's why we end up working with these 6 astrologers, developing this test where astrologers could really look at your entire astrological chart and try to make judgments that way. And so that's what this was born out of. So we really wanted to find astrology if it's real, but if it doesn't really work, we wanted to find that it doesn't work. And so that was our hope, to just try to show the truth of the matter as best we could. I will say though, no single study is definitive, right? No study could ever fully prove or disprove something. All a study can do is provide evidence. And we think that the study provides evidence against astrology working, but we can't be definitively sure there isn't some astrologer out there with incredible skill. We actually offered a $1,000 prize for anyone who could get at least 11 out of the 12 questions right. Nobody was able to do that. But you never know. Maybe someone out there genuinely is that good at astrology. We can't be absolutely certain they don't exist.
Does it actually matter if astrology is true or not?
I think it does matter because a lot of people use it to make decisions about their lives and also to understand themselves. All the time people are saying, well, this is my sign, so that's why I'm this way. And, oh, you're that sign, you're probably like this. And if that is actually just bullshit, then I think it matters. We're making false inferences about ourselves and other people and about who we're compatible with. Furthermore, people consult astrological charts and go to astrologers to help them make life decisions. And if those life decisions are actually just based on random noise, you're going to be making worse decisions than you could be. And we have better strategies. Better strategies exist for making these kinds of decisions. So I would much rather people use those. But for anyone who's not convinced, we actually released our astrology challenge, as we called it. So anyone can now go take it. And if you believe you have astrology skill, go on our website, clearthing.org, try the astrology challenge, and you can see if you can do it.
For a lot of people, astrology fills a kind of hole that might have been filled in other ways by religion and also by different types of communities. Is that valuable even if it's not literally predictive and true?
Communities are absolutely valuable, and communities can be bonded by many different things. You could have all kinds of beliefs or activities or hobbies that you bond over. And if astrology is one of those you bond over, I think that's totally fine. I think the danger is just if people are using it to make important decisions. So, someone I know, they got advice from an astrologer about their boyfriend. And, is that advice good advice? Well, that depends on if astrology actually works. So I think there's nothing wrong with doing things for fun or doing things as a part of a community for bonding, but it's just don't use a tool for things they can't do, right?
This is sort of all in a secular framework. People take advice from all kinds of people about all kinds of stuff. They might take advice from a priest or a religious person. Why is this any different? Why do we have to apply a scientific framework to predictability in this way?
Well, it just depends. If you are making a decision about, let's say, what medicine to take, are you going to take the medicine that has the best evidence that it treats the disease, or are you going to want to take the one with the second best evidence, the third best evidence, or are you going to try to make that decision without evidence at all, right? So I tend to take the view that evidence is one of the most effective methods for making decisions that we as humans have. Now, I don't think that scientific evidence is the only kind of evidence we have. A lot of the evidence we have comes from our experience, right? You spend a lot of your time doing things, you meet certain types of people, you learn, certain types of people are people I get along with, certain types of people are people I don't get along with. You don't need randomized controlled trials to learn that, right? You learn that through evidence, but it's through evidence of experience. So there's a lot of kinds of evidence. Scientific evidence is appropriate for certain kinds of questions, and evidence in our daily lives is appropriate for other kinds of questions. If you want to know what medicine to take, I think you should be using scientific evidence. If you want to be making really good decisions, I think you're better off using something that actually has evidence behind it as a decision-making framework rather than something that is just no better than random noise.
Do you think that part of the appeal of astrology is it's kind of Rorschach test where people see in it what they want to see in it and that's okay?
Well, it depends what you mean by it's okay. Again, I think if you're treating it as a fun game, I think it's absolutely fine. There's just nothing wrong with that at all. But if you think it's giving you insight about your life, then, well, is it really? And, one thing this has made me think about, now that we've seen in our study that astrologers really didn't agree with each other very much about which chart to match someone to, we got this very, very low rate of agreement. I started wondering, maybe there's a lot of ambiguity in the charts and that astrologers are actually filling in that ambiguity with a lot of information based on their personal experience with the person, if they know the person, or just based on the vibes of the person, if they're just meeting the person for the first time. And I don't think that they're doing that cynically. I don't think most astrologers are lying or cheating or anything like that. But they might be subconsciously filling in a lot of gaps in the charts and these ambiguities. And that means that they might actually be insightful people. Their insight might not be coming from astrology. You might be better off asking them for life advice just based on their insights as a human rather than asking them to read the chart. The chart might be doing more harm than good, even if they themselves might have a lot of insight.
What's your star sign, Spencer?
I'm a Pisces, but don't read anything into it.
That's such a Pisces thing to say. Spencer Greenberg, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thanks for having me.
Spencer Greenberg there. That's it for this episode of The Briefing. We'd love it if you could share this ep with someone astrologically aligned to you. And if you want to keep up with our other content, you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on TikTok and YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom. And as you will no doubt have foreseen, we'll be back in your feed tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'm Benzion Siebert. Catch you next time.